I've looked at, I guess, hundreds, maybe even thousands of volunteer organizations that try in different ways to reach across the oceans and to touch people in a helpful, beneficial, and respectful way. Not a dole or a handout or a subservient attitude on the part of the needy ones, but with a feeling of brotherhood based upon the principles of Christian faith. I think that's the biggest challenge we have today.
Hello, I'm Andrew Young, and this is a very special privilege for me, and it's a wonderful opportunity. Not often do you get a chance to talk about the problems of the world with people who have had such first-hand contact with them. And on this occasion, we're privileged to have a former President of the United States, President Jimmy Carter, who will talk with us about some of the problems of the world, not only from the perspective of a president, but from the perspective of a Christian, and a distinguished businessman, lawyer, something of a living legend, and if you forgive me, a modern-day saint, and Millard Fuller, the executive director for Habitat for Humanity. Together, they bring a perspective to the problems of the world from a global view to a very personal view, from the point of view of the kingdom of God coming in the lives of individual families to the perspective of a great nation trying to deal with world problems. But the unique thing is that from both perspectives, they talk as Christians, and that makes all the difference in the world. For we talk about the world from the perspective of love, and we talk about people as our brothers and sisters, and how we as Christians can and should relate and work with them. Mr. President, we've got a world situation that has most of us confused and everybody anxious. But from your perspective in the White House over 4 very critical years, I'm sure you have a different view for most of us. Are you scared of the world today, or how do you view things?
Well, I think there's a lot more tension now than there was 3 years ago, and a lot more threat of local wars being expanded into ones that involve us more and more directly. Lebanon, Central America are typical examples, I think. But one of the overall concerns that I have that even transcends the threat of world conflict is a breakdown between our own country on the one hand and the developing world on the other. A lack of communication, a lack of understanding, a lack of consultation, a lack of shared responsibilities. And this chasm that in the past we tried to heal when you were UN ambassador, I think is opening up wider and wider now. And there's no real way, at least through government functions under the present circumstances, for America to be looked upon as a friend with a sense of equality and justice and compassion and concern.
You know, one of the problems I think we both shared in government was something of a Christian conscience. It always bothered me that the verse, "Inasmuch as you've done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me." And when you think of representing the richest nation in the history of mankind, with a world that's impoverished and with, well, literally hungering, and with no housing, it's pretty hard to kind of relate that Christian faith, though I think you began to do some things during your term of office in that direction.
Well, you were, in a way, both my eyes and conscience in touching the people around the world who have the greatest human need. There's a limit to what a government agency can do, even an agency in as powerful a nation as we represented. The World Bank, the IMF can certainly help, but still there's a limit there. There has to be some sort of human sharing of concerning and responsibility. And that's why I've looked at, I guess, hundreds, maybe even thousands of volunteer organizations that try in different ways to reach across the oceans and to touch people in a helpful, beneficial, and respectful way. Not a dole or a handout or a subservient attitude on the part of the needy ones, but with a feeling of brotherhood based upon the principles of Christian faith. I think that's the biggest challenge we have today.
Well, you know, you not only have to share wealth, but you have to share values and commitment. And I think, Millard, you do that as well as anybody I know in Habitat. I've run across your projects in the strangest parts of the world, and it always makes me feel good to know that somebody is teaching and sharing and caring.
Well, we certainly try to do that in Habitat for Humanity. We say in Habitat that what the poor need is not charity but capital, and not simply caseworkers but co-workers. And that's the whole spirit in which this program is being operated. Of course, we started the idea in Sumter County, near Plains. Interestingly enough, the first house that we built through the Cornelia Partnership Housing Program, which was the mother of Habitat for Humanity, was for a man named Bo. Your youngest son is named Bo.
That's right.
Well, that's a real success story of building a home for that family. One of the daughters is now an attorney, and they got a nurse in the family, and they've turned around and helped others as others helped them. But the whole idea of Habitat for Humanity is seeing people as fellow human beings. From a Christian point of view, people for whom Christ died, and all are precious in God's sight. And whether it's in some slum of Atlanta, or some slum area of Americus, Georgia, or a slum of Kinshasa in Zaire, that those are people with hurts, with aspirations, with hopes, and we think as Christians that we should be there by their side and try to do something in a practical way to help them, help themselves, and then in turn to help others.
You know, around the South, we used to look for people with PhD minds who may not have had an opportunity to get an education. And we found quite a few. And when we began to help them, work with them in their political problems, in their neighborhood problems, they really helped to create a revolution that changed our Southland socially and politically, but it also brought a new religious and moral perspective. And I think a lot of what's happened to us here basically started with just little deeds of love and kindness. I like that hymn. It's not through swords, loud clashing, nor roll of stirring drum, but through deeds of love and kindness that the heavenly kingdom comes.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what I see in Habitat. And I see a direct relationship between Habitat and grassroots movements, the administration of a president committed to Christian values and the implementation of those values, and hopefully one day transforming a world that does not have, that can beat swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks.
Right. Well, we've got to quit seeing people as just as enemies, or just as communists, or just as somebody of a different race, but see our common humanity. And that's been our experience in Habitat for Humanity wherever we've worked, whether it's in Uganda, or Kenya, or Haiti, or Guatemala, or Peru, or in a slum area in this country. It's amazing how much alike we all are as human beings. And Habitat for Humanity is simply a practical expression of trying to go out and deal with something that all human beings have in common, and that is we get sleepy at night. We all have some possessions, either few or many. We have to have somewhere to put them, and we don't like to get wet when it rains, and we don't like to get cold. And we call Habitat a new frontier in Christian missions, a decent house and a decent community for God's people in need. So in this way, in a very much of a grassroots fashion. Ordinary folks are joining together in this movement to say that if I live in one side of town and have a decent home, it's not right for somebody to be over on the other side of town living like a rat. And whether the other side of town is literally the other side of the same city or half a world away, it should be of concern to us, and it should be enough of a concern that we are willing to do something about it.
Very good.
One of the things that I had a chance to see as president, as I mentioned earlier, is many different kinds of volunteer organizations that try to address basic needs of human beings around the world. And then when Rosa and I got back to Plains, we've been looking for a few ways to invest our time and efforts and energy and influence. And we've had, as you can imagine, many invitations. But she and I both, and have gotten involved now with Habitat because we've seen what it can do in a practical sense. She and I'll be either on the board of advisors or the board of directors of Habitat. Both of us will. And Millard's even had me over in America building a house.
And he's a good one. He's a good craftsman.
Had to put some of my carpenter experience to work. And I also had a chance to visit an apartment dwelling in New York that eventually will be 16 very nice apartments in an old dilapidated building that was on the verge of being destroyed. But one of the things that's impressed me is a large number of ways that people can help, either with direct financial contributions or with actual contribution of labor materials. I teach Sunday school at home in Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains, and we have a large number of people that come there from Indiana and Ohio, from universities, major universities around the world that come in just to spend a week or 2 weeks working with Habitat, actually building homes for people that need them a lot. So in a practical sense, I don't know of any way within the Christian faith that people can more directly help needy people than through Habitat. And this is kind of a rare thing among Christians, is to put what we believe into practical use, actually to help other people. And Habitat is a wonderful opportunity for this.
You know, as a student, my wife and I worked in a work camp in Europe after the Second World War. And we were officially over there helping people who had been bombed out of their homes and who were refugees. But the truth of it is, it did more for us than we probably did for them. And I think probably the people who work in Habitat get as much as they give. And I know you do. And
Absolutely.
We're certainly grateful for all that you continue to do. We in the city of Atlanta are working a little bit with you, not enough, but as we look at places to develop infill housing and high quality housing for very poor people, there's no more successful mechanism than the one you've developed in Habitat.
Right. There's another aspect to this, and I think a lot of people don't realize this. Of course, the very term habitat is most often used in connection with animals. Mm-hmm. And you know, if you have a certain species of animals that you want to eliminate, of course, most people don't want to eliminate, but you don't have to go out and chase them all down and shoot them. Just destroy their habitat, and they will die. Well, human beings need a habitat. And a part of that habitat is a decent shelter, a place in which to live. And we have discovered in case after case, both in this country and overseas, that when you put people into a decent human habitat, they blossom, they flower, they begin to grow in all kinds of ways, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. Their hope goes right up to the sky, and their whole outlook on life changes. And of course, another central ingredient to Habitat for Humanity is that we encourage those who have been helped, those who get a home, to then help others by faithfully making their payments. We use what we call the economics of Jesus in Habitat for Humanity, charge no profit and no interest, but we challenge those who have gotten the homes to faithfully make their payments, to donate if their economic situation improves, to certainly donate their labor, to help in other ways, to help someone else as someone has helped them.
That's one of the things I like about Habitat, is that we don't use any government funds. It's all strictly volunteer. Secondly, the homesteaders, the folks that are going to live in the house where it's built, either in New York or Atlanta or Americus or Plains or in Haiti or Peru, wherever, they help build the house themselves, either by making clay bricks or clay tile, or by putting up the wood frame, or by actually sawing the lumber when trees are available. And when they help build their own home, they know that's not a gift to them, and then they feel that they have an obligation to help the next family who needs a similar home. So it's an ongoing thing that inspires people, not only to help themselves and to help others, but to see through Christian faith the true meaning of Christ's ministry.
How does a specific project work, the one you've been working with in Americas, for instance?
Well, now there's a whole street named Habitat Street in Americas where we're going in and building homes for people that live right in that neighborhood whose houses are absolutely a disgrace or disgusting. I went over and spent a day with our pastor, actually putting up the walls and building the house. And during the day, I had a chance to meet the family that's going to move into this home once it's finished. We had a bunch of volunteers there and 2 or 3 people to actually give us instruction. The funds for this house had been contributed by people from all over this nation, and the family will only have to pay the actual cost of the building of the house with no interest and 20 years to pay for it. And I don't think they've had any defaults on houses anywhere in the world so far.
Right. That's right.
So this is a practical example of how people can move out of a tar paper shack into a decent house, and then the lot where the tar paper shack is located will serve as a place to build the next decent house, and part of that cost of that second house will be paid by the monthly payments from the house we just built.
I tell you, the no interest is clearly the big thing. I don't know how anybody at almost any income can own a home nowadays if you have to pay 14-15% interest on it.
Well, that's where the contributions come in, and also the payments from houses already built. They go to help defray the cost of interest.
So if you had a nice capital pool that you could continue reinvesting, you can go a long way with that.
Absolutely. And we get so much mileage out of a dollar for 2 reasons. Number one, so much of the work is done by volunteers. These volunteers donating their labor keeps the cost down very, very low. And then these payments coming back and the donated labor on the part of the people whose homes have been built. All of these things combine together to pull off the miracle of the loaves and the fishes, really. That's a part of the economics of Jesus, not only the no profit and the no interest, but the miracle of sharing, of everybody who's involved in it, doing what they can.
What can I do? And where can we begin in our communities or in other countries?
Mr. President, you want to tell him?
Well, you can go first and I'll follow up.
You can get out a checkbook. You can write checks. Habitat is a charitable a 501c3 corporation that can receive tax-deductible contributions. You can make a non-interest loan. We send a promissory note back to people who may not have money that they want to give, but they can make a loan, which we can then use to build houses with. You can help to tell other people about it, spread the word. A lot of people don't know about the work of Habitat for Humanity. We need many people to simply tell others about it. You can offer to come and do as President Carter has done and become a volunteer builder in Americas or in New York City. You can organize a work camp to go to a particular building site and help to work. You might want to really make a heavy commitment and go overseas for 2 years. We have a program of orienting people to learn the language of a particular country and go and build homes for people in that area for a 2-year period. Those are some of the ways. There are many others.
Andy, we have a church in Plains, Maranatha, where I go. We only have about 100 members, but we've got a missionary family in Togo. We've got a Habitat group in Zaire. We have another young man who left our church, is leaving it this week to go to Africa to work. And we have one in Haiti who's down there. In Haiti, they're building about 1 house a week. When the young man went to Haiti, just a few of us in our church took up collection very quickly to build the first house. It only cost $1,200. You can build a whole house for $1,200. That's right. And we had an Easter pageant in our church this year. And the special Easter offering all went to build the first house with a young man who left our church to go to Africa. So I think that's one thing that a church can do. They can contribute money to build individual housing projects, or they can encourage young people or even young married couples to go on a full-time basis for a year or two to actually coordinate one of these projects.
I think if we can find ways to put this personal ingredient, the whole time we've been talking, I've been aware of the fact that the federal government in the Roosevelt administration attempted to do something like this with public housing. And as nice as public housing was and is, particularly in this city, it still doesn't work because people don't do anything to earn their place. They feel like they're victims of charity, and they feel like there's something demeaning about it. And I think being involved personally and sharing not only labor and capital but love makes an enormous difference in whether or not these kinds of visionary ideas work. And clearly you all have made it work, and we look forward to doing even more with the help of others that are inspired by this example.
One of the most important elements is that this is not limited to any single denomination. The project in New York is sponsored by Roman Catholics, Orthodox, almost all the Protestant denominations. And every individual center for habitat work in our country has to be on an ecumenical basis. It has to be multi-denominational in character.
That's right.
And this I think, is a very good way to bring Christians of different faiths, different denominations together to work in a common purpose for Christ.
You emphasized a point that is so important to Habitat, and that is love. We have a book in Habitat called Love in the Mortar Joints. And we say that every brick that we lay must have a little love between the two bricks to hold it together. And those human relationships are so incredibly important. Making people feel needed and useful and important is so critical, not only to this program, but to any program that's going to succeed. I heard a woman say one time that lived in a slum, she said, "I feel all thrown away." And if you can give people a purpose and a meaning in life, that's the greatest gift that you can give to them. In Zaire, of course, I worked in Zaire for 3 years and started the program in that country. And the word révolution is a big word in Zaire in connection with their political changes. And they see Habitat for Humanity as a revolution of benevolence. And you have a public meeting and they all yell, "Révolution! Habitat, oye! Révolution, oye!"
Well, I think this is the kind of revolution that Jesus came to bring. It's a revolution in the souls of men and women, a revolution in the quality of life, a revolution that makes the world look a little more like God's kingdom. And I want to thank you for really helping to build the kingdom right here in our midst.
It really makes America look different in the eyes of people who sometimes fear us. They now see that they can look upon us as those who love them.
Well, I've always felt that America's might has gone on two tracks. One was the Christian missionary track, which educated, which healed, which now in Habitat builds housing. Another was our military and economic power. And I've always felt that one is no good without the other. And particularly the quality of life that you develop in Habitat is clearly what the American dream is all about. I guess it's what Pope John Paul was talking about in his Pacem in Terris, or peace on earth. For peace, for a lot of people, is bread. It's development. It's fresh water. It's a house.
Thank you, Andy. We've enjoyed being at your home.
Thank you.